Yeah.
Call the Finance Committee meeting to order. Do I got it, okay. Discussion of possible action on the minutes from October 16, 2017.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion of possible action on claims.
Claims this evening are $744,165.48.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second for approval. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion of possible action on operators licenses.
Tonight, you're asked to recommend approval of 3 regular operator licenses that are on file in the city clerk's office, contingent on payment of any outstanding debt owed to the city and successful completion of the background check for the period November 7th, 2017 to June 30th, 2019.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and second to approve. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on tax collection agreement with the county.
This is the annual tax collection agreement with St. Croix County. If you approve it, they would collect the property taxes on our behalf for the next tax year.
I just have a question.
Yes.
What are the options?
We would have to purchase software and additional staff to do it here.
What's the fee?
The fee is
Like 12,000
$1.75
or? Oh,
per parcel.
So 11, almost 3,000.
okay.
It's the agreement's the same as it was last year.
Correct, and the same dollar amount, the $1.75 per parcel.
Move to approve.
Second, and it is yearly.
Yep.
Correct.
And they've been doing it since before I came, so they've been doing it for a long time.
Okay, got a motion and second for approval and discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on recommendation on ordinance 17-17, amending chapter 23, establishing the type of resolutions that may be considered by the council.
This is the ordinance, excuse me, the ordinance I asked Catherine to come up with. And up to this point, I guess if there's questions to ask Catherine on the ordinance, what is it, 17-17? Excuse me. Amending chapter 23. I thought it was a good piece. It looks to answer the questions I've had and encompasses the points of making sure that resolutions are affecting the city and our regular day-to-day operations.
What I tried to do, or what I did in the ordinance, is to have it apply to all resolutions, well, only resolutions that are required by either some sort of case law, statute, ordinance, rule, or regulation. Any resolution other than those would not be put on the agenda relating to city business. So, for example, there's sometimes the league will say, you know, please adopt a resolution that is in favor of something, or those resolutions would not be included in the resolutions that are allowed to be put on the agenda, absent a vote, and I put unanimous in the ordinance by the council. So everyone would have to agree. I just want you to understand that it's very narrow, because it's difficult to do it any other way.
Well, I'm glad it is now.
And make it achieve the purpose.
So everybody had a chance to look at the language. Any issues?
No.
No, I don't. We've talked about it before, and the city shouldn't be in the social ordinance business.
Okay.
So I will move that we pass it on to council
Or just recommendation.
for recommendation, yeah. And,
For adopt,
Right.
yeah.
and then we'll take it up at that time, I guess. But it does meet the objective I was looking for, so thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on proposal by Rich and Associates to prepare and provide the City of Hudson with detailed requests for proposals and specifications for a system of multi-space pay stations around downtown.
This is coming from our parking committee through the Community Development Office. Mr. Blake Fry is here from the Chamber of Commerce to give us a lowdown on where we are at this point with the RFP request.
Boy, I've been waiting for this.
I didn't know you had. Lots of people have. Well, thank you, Randy. Bringing forward today a recommendation to contract with Rich and Associates, the same firm that we hired to do our long-term parking plan and the parking study. Contract with them to generate the RFPs we will issue for multi-space pay stations, and then also the equipment that goes along with that, both on the enforcement side of things and the ticketing portion of it, as well as the record keeping and the processing of the information. Our recommendation is to contract with them to generate the RFP. And I want to spend a little bit of time talking about why we think this is the right move. I've had the opportunity to update the safety committee, the public safety committee, to this point about what we have been doing as a committee up to this point, but I haven't had a chance to talk to neither this committee nor the full council about where we stand with all this. What we've been doing is we've been having meetings, conference calls, webinars with some of the providers of these different types of equipment, whether it's the pay stations, it's license plate readers that you can place on the front of vehicles, it's the ticketing software and equipment that the officers will have as they enforce parking in our community. We've been sitting through these webinars and learning more and more about this, and honestly, I know far more about parking than I ever thought I would ever know in my life at this point. But what I think we've really learned is that we know a lot, but not as much as I think we have in this community to get this RFP right. And I want to talk a little bit about that. What we have learned is that there is no one firm that does everything. There is no one company that has the central pay stations, that has the license plate readers, that has the ticketing software. Every company does something different. And that there's a lot of integration that has to happen between these systems. So if you purchase one pay station company, you better make sure that the other two companies that you're going to, or the three that you're going to bring in to integrate with that system, they need to talk to each other. Those systems need to be able to work together. And so we want to get this right. We want to get this right as it relates to the pay stations, license plate readers, everything else that goes along with it. We feel the best way to do this is to work with Rich and Associates and have them generate the request for proposals. We want these systems to integrate with each other, and we want to make sure we have the proper number of pay stations throughout the community, throughout the downtown central business district, to make sure it's both cost efficient for the city, but also convenient enough for our visitors and our citizens that they'll voluntarily comply with this. We don't want people walking 2 blocks to a pay station because they won't pay at all. We feel that it's probably more efficient to bring in Rich and Associates to generate this than trying to do this ourselves for a couple reasons. One, they are going to be able to turn around a good RFP in a more time efficient manner than we're going to, given the manpower and the expertise we have right now. We want to get this done. We want these systems to be in place next year. We want them to be in place next year not only because it is an opportunity to generate more revenue for the city, but because we have learned through our study that our busiest times are at night and on weekends. And we need to expand our hours of enforcement, not because it'll generate more revenue, that's great, but voluntary compliance and the voluntary compliance that comes from enforcement will encourage people to move on, keep the traffic circulating, keep the parking circulating to generate more open spaces, and that's what we need for our businesses downtown. They need their customers to be able to park conveniently close to where their businesses are located. So we are looking at this. We want to get this done. The proposal from Rich and Associates is to get this RFP issued within a 4-week period as soon as we give them the go-ahead. They will work with the city in terms of reviewing those proposals and they'll work with us not only to make sure we're comfortable with what's in the RFP, but also what's coming in bid-wise from these outside vendors. Their proposal, the fee that they're asking for is $7,500 to generate this. We've run this by the committee. We've run this by Michael, and he's comfortable with that amount, feels it's a reasonable fee for what they're going to provide us. And really, we want this to move forward, again, as quickly as we possibly can. We want one, and we need to get this right. We want something that's going to last us for years, and we feel by working with Rich and Associates, that's the best way to move forward with this. So we're asking, and we're recommending that we approve the $7,500 charge from Rich and Associates to help us generate these RFPs and get them out in the next couple weeks.
Okay, thanks, Blake.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
In your research into this issue, what is the system set up, and then is there an annual fee to keep it running?
There's going to be an annual fee no matter what we do, and most of the annual fee is going to be related to a lot of the software that needs to run this. The fee is going to be, the amount of it's going to be dictated on how much of the data we want to process here through servers in the back room, or how much we want to outsource to cloud systems that a lot of these parking providers have. And again, that's going to be all over the map, with these bids that are going to come in. What we're likely to see is that one of these companies, let's say, is Gentex with their license plate reader systems. And I'll talk just a moment about why we think the license plate reader is the right way to go instead of pay by space. That they're likely going to work with a couple other companies, but the reality is Gentex might show up as a bid from 2 or 3 different proposals that come in, because they may be able to integrate with other systems. We don't know who the point person will be, whether it's the pay stations, the enforcement, the license plate reader, whoever it's going to be. That's going to be the catalyst to get a proposal done and into us. It's really could be a whole mishmash of things that come in, and that's why we want Rich and Associates to be associated with it. We like the idea of the pay by plate system instead of pay by space, and we like it because the license plate reader technology that's available, and most communities are going this way, where you can put a license plate reader on one vehicle, and within an hour and a half you can do a sweep of downtown and not only recognize by plate whether people have paid for their parking, but you can pick up things like, is there an Amber Alert associated with this vehicle? Is this car been stolen? This is information that our police department can get. But pay by plate also lets people move around downtown. They don't have to stay in one spot. If they want to move a couple blocks over, they want to head closer down to, say, Lolo's, and they were down at Mallory's, they can do so. It's all going to be under that one jurisdiction. So that's why we think it's the best technology. It's the quickest to read. And as we were talking at the public safety meeting with our chief about when can we expand these hours? How soon can we start enforcing the hours that we need? The reality is you can't do it with what we have right now. Too much in the way of manpower. We need the technology to make it more efficient so we can start enforcing at our busiest times downtown.
Okay, so how much revenue do you expect the city will enjoy from this if it goes into effect?
I don't have the exact figure. I can't remember. The study projects a certain number, but off the top of my head, I honestly cannot remember what that revenue figure is.
I don't remember the figure, but I know that some of the consultants we've talked to say we're sitting on a potentially $1 million business, provided we do it correctly.
Annual?
Yeah.
So right now it's like 40 grand a year or something like that, isn't it? And that's given that at any given time, anywhere between 10 and 20% of the meters are not functioning correctly.
Correct, and the limited hours of enforcement.
Right. So
we could double it in just a matter of
tough projection without putting a dollar amount on it. A price tag really on the hourly parking cost.
Some of that is going to come down to your decision on where people are not paying for parking currently and where we want to start enforcing that parking. Up right outside on 3rd Street, would you want to put pay by plate meters there or not? So it's a lot of decisions still to be made, but we want to make sure we have the right combination of companies and consultants that are going to lead us down the right path in the long term.
I'm not sure he answered all your questions, but it depends on the different type of pay stations, whether they take bills, credit cards, or change. Everything's going to fluctuate depending on the RFP we send out and what we were looking for. I think we decided on, did we decide on bills or change? But for sure credit cards.
For sure, credit cards. And I mean, the variables are, do we want, one of the options is to have solar-powered pay stations. When we started to think about the angle of the sun, certain number of year and the height and the distance from the sidewalk for our buildings, probably not our best bet to be. That would save us money long-term. If it was a realistic option, probably not. But yeah, that's the other thing is how well each of these units have heaters in them, so they'll continue to work through a cold winter. But as cold as it gets here, do you want that bill feed in or not? Right now, I think we were leaning towards yes, but again, we need the right people to tell us what the best solution for us is.
So I heard you talk about how the broad array of the spectrum of technology that's available out there. I presume that in RFP, the directions for these guys, they will be tasked with making the RFP very broad to invite in all of the different types of vendors.
Very much so.
Certainly, and I think there are certain things we feel confident that we want, like the license plate reader technology. I mean, we would have been wasting our time over the last few months if we didn't narrow some things down to what we feel confident about. But again, something along the lines of what's better for us to have all this data going through servers that we host or going through a cloud. We want to leave that wide open and say, give us what it is on, what's your cost on both options.
Okay.
And there will be some man hours underneath whoever is going to be the parking manager. And right now, as it's set up, I believe the chief of police is the manager of the parking. Now, we have also talked about a parking coordinator or disseminating that under a sergeant's job. We don't know.
Sounds like a good retirement position.
Never
Something
thought
a
of that,
hotel
did we?
manager can do in his downtime. Who knows what it is, but
So, there is going to be a cultural shift in the parking enforcement and who's managing it correctly. And it's going to be a lot of training for this, but we are also looking down towards the future, so we're addressing the issue further out than, so we don't have to do this again and reinvent the wheel.
yeah.
Okay.
What's the source of revenue to pay?
Parking.
Parking fund.
I'll move to approve.
And I'll second.
Got a motion second to approve. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Thanks, Blake.
Thank you.
Discussion of possible action on managed print services contract with Marco.
Brian is here. Mike is out. Is Mike here? No, Brian's here. Oh, Mike is back there too. Essentially, they have been looking at our printer costs, equipment, ink, all those things, and have solicited proposals to try to see if we can save some money, and this is what they came up with. It's been a multi-month process, so.
Okay, Brian?
I know there's been a couple questions floating around out there. I just wanted to know if there's any others.
No,
Everybody have a chance to take a look at this?
no fancy PowerPoint from the IT guy?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Really?
Holy moly. The only question I have is, so we're going to rent, I was confused, we're going to rent all of these machines?
Correct. It'd be a lease.
They'd be an operating lease.
Yeah.
Right. And some of the printers in certain offices like mine and that we need, we'll keep the ones we have and they'll pick up the maintenance on those.
Correct. There's a handful of printers throughout the city that we're able to keep, and Marco will provide maintenance and supplies on those.
So Brian, according to these figures, the 5-year cost of going with the system you recommend, Marco, would be half of the cost of operating it as it currently exists?
Correct.
So the city would potentially save $72,000 over 5 years?
Over 5 years, yeah.
And about 2/3 of that goes to the general fund, because that's where the bulk of the printers are, the copiers.
So what money up front are we putting? None?
No.
These are just the savings you're putting in front of it?
Yeah, according to the lease, the monthly, the contract, our monthly payment would be roughly $1,200.
Okay.
And right now, we're spending $2,400 a month.
This seems too easy. I'll move to approve.
I'll second, but what's the catch?
You got to buy me dinner.
All right.
Got a motion, and a second, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Thanks, Brian. Discussion and possible action on letter of engagement with SEH for Hanley Road traffic study.
This was brought up, Sifco had another meeting, he'll be here for council, but this was brought up at the last meeting when they're talking about Hanley Road, and Tom's recommendation is that if this is approved, that it be taken back to Public Safety and Public Works as far as what they want out of the study. But before that happened, I felt we should identify a source of the funds and approve the money for it. So that's the proposal is for $8750 to conduct this traffic study on Hanley. Traffic safety study, I guess, is a better way to describe it. And the money would come out of this year's contingency fund.
Devin, have we looked at, since we've had a bunch of these proposals coming, have we really looked at the hourly billable rates from SEH and where we're getting these figures?
That would be a question for Tom, so if you want to hold the discussion over to council, that's fine.
Okay, well, I'm just saying.
When we went out for bid, if you remember a few years back, we got proposals and
Yep.
they went some for Bonestrew and we hired both of them, so.
Maybe you could, have we verified the rates of the billables?
No, but we can.
I'd like to see that.
You mean, going forward, making sure.
I just want to make sure that, because we're just, these are coming quite a bit and they're seem to be more expensive every time we see them.
Okay. Well, we can do that, yeah.
So we'll discuss it at
Or-
council.
We can discuss it now, yeah.
Right. He was just, so going forward, Randy's just asking that we verify that the billings are what they proposed when they made their proposal.
Right.
We can still forward this on.
I'll move that we approve it and forward it to the council.
I'll second.
Motion second for approval. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on authorization to begin police chief recruitment.
As you're aware, Marty will be retiring officially in April. He'll be here through the middle of March, end of March. And anytime we have an opening, the council has to approve filling the position. And as you're also aware, the Police and Fire Commission, per state statute, are the ones that do the recruitment. So we're just requesting that they be authorized to begin the process.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion second to approve. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Anything for future agendas?
The budget hearing is at the next meeting. Check with if there's questions, depending on if it's general fund. I can probably answer most of them. If it's the other funds, Brenda can address. But if you let us know prior to the council meeting that night, so that if there's things we need to look up, so we're prepared that night to answer your questions, so that we're not flying by the seat of our pants. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Anybody else?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Got motion second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thanks.